Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Miller. Every week, I chat with fascinating people from all walks of life in order to bring you knowledge, inspiration, and insight. If you enjoy the show, you can support it by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with a friend. This is the Jeremy Miller Podcast.
All right, I'm taking this down. Ugh, I don't like this kind of stuff.
We got to do a cheers.
You got to cut it out of the...
These taste like
Oh,
cough
you
syrup.
just do it without taking the thing off?
That's what happens when you hit arms every day. It's so good. It's so good.
I don't know what you think, but
I bring my water bottle. Whatever.
Here, take an Altoid door. Chase it down.
Altoid Dwight.
We got to pray real quick.
Okay.
You know, Piercy boy.
Oh, I know. I know how he is.
All right. God, we just thank you for today. We thank you for Jeremy, Lord. We thank you for the talents and gifts that you've placed in him and the influence that you've placed on him. Lord, I pray that you just speak through me. Pray that you just reach people in a very powerful way like you have through the other podcasts that we've done before, Lord. And I pray that the third time's the charm and that the third time is the one that reaches the most people. And that you can reach people through me and what, I say to ultimately impact people, to change people's lives, and actually leave this podcast wherever they're listening to it, on the treadmill, running outside, in the car, from home. Lord, I pray that they just get impacted in a supernatural way and that they'll never be the same after it. So we thank you. We love you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Wow.
Let's go, dude.
Dude, that mac and cheese is in my throat right now.
I think we both should have brought our waters in.
We'll be all right.
But we can get started when you're ready.
Oh, we're already going, dude.
Oh, so Dylan's going to put this in?
All this. Piercy baby. Big Showe. Showe? Well, I know your last name is Showe, but you always say Piercy baby big Showe.
Well, my friends in Texas call me the Big Show. And then one of my mentor's coaching clients, he's from Australia, and he started calling me Piercy and Piercy baby. And then they kind of combined the two, and it's Piercy baby big Show. But then my last name's Showe. But Show, it sounds better, So.
Yeah, I feel that. Well, isn't your other nickname the Mechanism?
Yes, because I have bionicle legs, arms, and kind of a machine underneath.
You're a cyborg, dude.
Yeah, I'm like that guy from Batman.
Yeah.
Two-Face.
I think you have to be to run, not just run, but be the youngest to ever complete the Triple Crown of 200-mile races. You got to be, not human, I guess is the right way to put it.
Not human. Well, I'm very human. I have... the same, tendencies that a lot of other humans have, like Jeremy and I were just talking about, which we'll, I'm sure, get into later, of, a little bit of post-race blues. I think that would be a great topic of conversation. But, yeah, some may say that I'm not human, but I believe with, consistency and gradually building up over time, you're capable of so much more than you think.
You think that was what allowed you to finish these things? Just being consistent in training and spending years building up this big base? Do you think that's what got you through? Or can you pinpoint it to one specific thing?
I don't think one specific thing, but there are definitely a couple. I think it's almost like the power of it, the power of having people with you, but also the power of having someone that has gone before you and seeing a picture of possibility of what, people are capable of. And that we live in a social media day and age, right? Where you can see a lot of people who do awesome things. And so, seeing people doing things, I thought, if they could do this, I may be able to do this. And that just propelled that belief. So I think a combination of things. It's just almost like a delusional belief in yourself, to believe that you're capable of more than, what your current situation is. Seeing other people being, in doing incredible things and being inspired by that, not like jealous or intimidated. And then also too, it's, putting a plan in place to be able to accomplish that and work towards that on a daily basis. And two, not just from yourself, but we'll get into this later, but like I had a coach that had done exactly what I wanted to do. And sure, there wasn't really anyone my age who had done it before, but he had done it. And so I knew he knew what it took. And so if he put a training plan in place for me to follow, I could follow the game plan and get it done.
Yeah, I think that's one of the quickest and easiest paths to success, I would say. At least from what I've learned, is like figure out what you want to do or where you want to be, and then find somebody who is where you want to be or they've already done what you wanted to do, and just learn from them, follow in their steps, and you can probably fast track a lot of stuff. You can skip out on all their failures that they probably made,
Yeah.
and you can just reach that point quicker and easier because you've got that like mentor guiding you there. How'd you get?
100%.
Go ahead.
100%. And I just wanted to add really quick one thing before you do that I think is really important is you almost have to get your first like win or couple wins
On your own?
Yeah. And maybe that you see a person, they inspire you to do, something, but I don't think like off the bat, I didn't run 3 200-mile races over the span of 3 months. It was like and you can go back, we recorded, I'm sure, or I remember like a little bit more in depth on my progression on previous podcasts, but real briefly, I started out in high school running a 5K. I thought at the time, man, this 5K, like I can't imagine doing a 5K every day before lacrosse tryouts. I did it. I figure out I'm one of the better people on the team because I'm just working hard. And that then gives me a little bit of confidence. I see my mom doing marathons. She never pushed it on me, but I'm like, okay, well, if she could do a marathon, maybe I could do a half. I set out to do a half. There were people in my life who kind of doubted me, not from a negative way, but just because like they had never run one. They didn't know what it took. And they're kind of like, well, do you know this? Or do you know that? Or do you know this? Just trying to protect me. And so that kind of disbelief carried on to me. But then I ended up doing it. And here's the pivotal moment is I did my first half marathon. And I would consider that as like one of my first big running wins. And once I finished it, I had this belief break of if I didn't think at one point that I could do this, what else is possible for me? If other people in my life, when I set out to do this, didn't think that I could do this, what other things in my life are maybe I'm thinking about doing or I want to do that other people are doubting? What other areas are they wrong in? What other areas am I wrong in? And so then it unlocks this huge belief of, I didn't think I could do this at one point. What else is possible? And so that's been my running journey of achieving those wins and then thinking, man, I finished this. What else am I capable of? What else is possible? And so that's what I mean by like getting your first couple wins is your mind has to be opened to the possibilities. And I don't think you go from closed mindset to believing you can do the Triple Crown of 200s. I think it's a progression of expansion over, months and years.
I love that. Do you think that we like just put these limitations on ourselves or just like we have these people telling us, oh, you can never do that, or like, why are you doing that? It's so crazy. And then we just believe it. And then that's what we tell ourselves. Like, where do you think all these self-imposed limitations come from? Or they're just from other, like we just believe in other people more than ourselves, maybe.
I think it's a combination of a bunch of things. I think it's a combination of other people's beliefs projected onto yourself because like maybe they weren't able to do it. So they're like, okay, if I couldn't, he couldn't. And even maybe subconsciously. But I also think that when it comes to listening to these people and whether you should or whether you shouldn't, like a lot of times in certain respects, maybe they could be right about some things. Like maybe at that point I wasn't capable of doing, like from the start, maybe you're not really capable of doing 100 right there in the current state, but with training and following a plan, maybe you could. So I'm not saying that's for every case, but because I do think there were times where I could do something, but there was doubt. And then too, there's this thing that I've learned from one of my mentors in a classification of people called well-wishing haters. And I don't know if you've experienced these kind of people. These are almost the most deadly of them all. And these well-wishing haters are people that love you and care for you, but maybe because they've never done the thing, or the thing that you want to do scares them, or they are just worried for you, they'll not try to, but they'll cast doubt on you and get you to kind of hold back a little bit more than what you're capable of. And they may not even be trying to. They might be trying to do the best for you. And that's why I call them like they're really well-intentioned, but the way they come across can be like kind of like a hater in a way.
Yeah, that's tough, especially if it's like somebody you're close with or a family member or something. It's like, if that's who's holding you back, other than like a real hater, online or some, just bully or something. But it's like somebody close to you who's like kind of like saying stuff like, "Oh, should you really be doing this? Are you sure you might get hurt?" That's hard.
Oh, I'm sure you've heard that, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Oh, my mom is like the biggest worry wart in the whole world. I think she knows I'm going to do it regardless, but she's like, "Are you sure you should be running 50 miles through the mountains?" I'm like, "I don't know, but I'm going to do it anyways."
We love you, moms,
Yeah.
and people who care about us, but we just, want to push our limits.
Yeah. Before we go too far into this, we should
Yes.
tell people what the Triple Crown is, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
Just in case they don't know.
I guess that would be.
And like some more context and details of
Yeah, for sure.
what it is.
So the Triple Crown of 200s is a set of 3 200-mile races. It was planned to be June, August, and October, but June got pushed back because of the snow in Lake Tahoe. And so the races are in Lake Tahoe, Bigfoot, which is in like Washington near Mount St. Helens, and then Moab, Utah. And it was supposed to be June, August, October. It ended up being July, August, October. And even though it's like 4 different months, the time span from the first to the last was under 3 months.
Dang.
And so, yeah, it was a lot in a little bit of time.
And you became the youngest person. I mentioned it earlier, but I think it's worth saying again.
The youngest man.
Oh, was there a girl that
There
was
ended
younger?
up being a girl.
Okay.
But she finished like 20 hours behind me, I think, or something like that.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, so you finished faster, like on a different year or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So the youngest man to finish.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that's a politically correct terminology.
Okay.
I don't want any haters out there to be like, "Oh no, you didn't do it." But actually, for a solid probably 10 to 15 hours, I was technically the youngest person.
Okay.
But she finished this year.
Oh, the same year.
Yeah.
She did it. Oh, did it? Was she? So she was at Tahoe. I probably saw her at some point then, right?
Yeah, she hiked a lot of it, so she came in close to the cutoffs.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, props to her.
Dang, that's amazing. And what made you want to do this big challenge initially?
Yeah, there are a lot of different things that made me want to do it. I mean, how I kind of got roped into it, it's kind of a funny, kind of dumb story, but I was scrolling social media one day, as we all do, and I was following this girl named Candace Burt. And Candace is the race director for these 200s. And actually, as I've shared this story more, I realized this marketing has gotten a lot of people to do her races. But she posted like 200 is the new 100. And so I was like, what do you mean by that? Because I started to do 100-mile races. And then I looked at the website, of course, at that time. Excuse me. Of course, at that time, they're advertising the Triple Crown of 200s. And so like the stick was each race is a lottery that you enter into. So it's like a chance that you will or won't get in there. And then like if you enter all three, you automatically get into all of them. So I was like, well, I want to do a really tough challenge next year too. So, why not? I don't want to chance whether I get into one or not. Why not just run all of them? And so, yeah, it was a funny way I got roped into that
Oh
one.
my
But
gosh.
then it kind of sunk in, and I was like, man, that would be really cool if I did it. And I looked, and I was like, oh man, there's no one younger than me that's done it. So I was like, game on.
Did you think, when you originally signed up, did you think that you were gonna be able to finish, or did you have any doubts of like, am I really gonna be able to run 3 200-mile races?
I mean, you don't know what you don't really know, but I kind of had a delusional belief that I was gonna just do it, because what happens, and this is the power of like getting your first couple wins. And at this point, I had stacked a bunch. Like I had stacked, marathons, 52 miles, 60 miles, 100 miles. I'd run 4 100-mile races, and not easy 100-mile races too. I ran the Keys 100, which is in Florida in May, so it's real hot, humid. I run Leadville, which is one of the tougher mountain races. And so I'd stacked those wins, and with each race, with each difficult thing that you do, it builds capacity, builds belief in yourself. Like that's one thing running has done for me huge, is building belief in myself, because you have evidence to support that you are who you say you are. And so like by that time, I was like, okay, well, I've set out to do 100-mile races and things like that before, where, I was like pretty sure I could, do my best and finish, but I wasn't like confident because I'd never done it. I mean, I was confident, but as confident as you can be without actually having done the thing. But the more you do, then the more your confidence goes up in what you can do in the future.
Do you think all that confidence has bled into other areas of your life?
100%.
Like it's not just applicable to running?
100%.
Like give me an example, like in business or like relationships or
Yeah, I mean, I take a lot of calls just in the work that I do. And, when I was in high school and college, like, I mean, I could talk to people like parents and friends and things like that, but talking to like complete strangers on the phone, and like being vulnerable, sharing different things, asking questions that are like not easy questions to ask, just has become easier as I've developed myself and my confidence in myself.
Yeah. Dude, that's so interesting you say that, because that's my experience too. 100%. I used to be like, I don't know if social anxiety is the right word, but I used to be so scared to talk to people. And then through running and just like doing these things, it builds so much confidence, like fitness endeavors of any kind, I think, whether it's lifting weights or running or I don't know, playing sports or something where you can get those wins. Like it's that like work to reward ratio where you learn like, okay, if I put in the work, I can get a win.
Yes.
And something about that just builds so much confidence for people. And it definitely is the same thing for me too.
Yeah, running is one of the biggest confidence boosting like tools I've used in my life, because it's exactly what you said. You make a hypothesis about like, okay, I want to do this. Like, I think I can do this. I want to try and get this time. You train, you work towards it, you put in the effort, and then you realize on race day if you did the work to achieve the goal or you didn't, and you adjust your effort.
What was the hardest race out of the 3?
Oh, I think you know this one.
Is it Tahoe?
Yeah.
What do you think it was about Tahoe? Because that was the first race of the 3. You would think, logically speaking, you'd be more fatigued as the races went on and the harder it would get, but the first race was the hardest?
Well, Dylan, as you're watching this, cue up the video of me, if you can even do this, cue up the video of me at Tahoe when I talk about, I didn't realize how long this race was.
That's so funny.
It's a good video, but essentially
that was like 60 miles in?
Yeah, for the audience, like just to give you some context.
I need a freaking Jamie over here to pull up clips on this screen.
Oh, dude, that would be sweet.
Someday.
Maybe we'll do a podcast together.
There we
can
go.
like figure something like that out. But yeah, so just to take you through Tahoe, and I think we already talked about this, so I won't go through too long. But essentially, I forgot to lube up my body and my private parts before the race. I have some GI issues, so during Tahoe, by the time 60 miles in comes around, I've been chafing. I've been just not having a good day. And at that point, I had to get to the mile 68 station where I was going to sleep. And I walked into there just like totally down, totally, just not wanting to be there, thinking, like, man, how am I going to do 140 more miles of this? And I went to bed and I wake up and Jeremy catches this clip on social media on a video. And I say, like, man, when I signed up for this, I didn't realize how long it was going to take. Because, the first one took me 87 hours.
Yeah.
Versus a 100-mile race is, like, I've run 100-mile races in 22 hours. So think about that. That's almost 4 times the amount of time for double the distance. It's crazy. And it's because it's like, once you go beyond 100, I mean, once you're at 100, you're pretty beat. So going another 100 miles, pretty beat up, it just takes longer.
It seems like it's kind of exponential, maybe, in that your pain and your pain and your discomfort get worse and worse and starts compounding on itself throughout these races. It seems like that's the case, or no?
I mean, I think you definitely move slower. But for me, what I've found is like your pain and like your body just gets to a point where it just hurts. Like your legs hurt, your legs are tight, your feet hurt, you have blisters. But for the most part, like your feet hurt and they reach a point of hurt that they don't really go further than almost. But still, because your legs hurt, your feet hurt, you're sleep deprived, it's hard to keep moving fast.
That makes sense.
So I don't necessarily know if it like goes like exponentially, but like you kind of reach a point where like you're just trying to move however you can.
What about like mentally? Maybe like mentally, you think it gets exponentially harder, or is it just kind of like you reach a point where you're just like, oh my gosh, I have 80 or what would it be, like 35 hours left roughly? Like, are you doing that math in your head of like,
No.
I have a whole nother 24 hours I gotta run?
No, I can't, because that's what happened when I did Tahoe. Is at 60 miles I thought, man, and I have this rule with myself to not do this, but Tahoe I just got sidetracked from it because it's my first 200 and I didn't come in like focused on that specific piece, but I learned my lesson and made the adjustment. But like when I go into a race, it's this thing called segmentation. I focus on, okay, how many miles to the next aid station? I have a background on my phone with the segments. And so I look at my phone and say, okay, to the next aid station, I got 17 miles, 3,500 feet of climbing. So it should take me roughly around this amount of time. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I do all my things at the aid station, then get going. All I focus on, 17.8 miles, X amount of hours. And so I just focus on getting to that next aid station, because if you think about how much left, like, oh, I'm 100 miles in, I still have 140 to go.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're counting down that way, it's just going to completely backfire in your brain. And then two, there's so many things that can happen in these things. Like when you were talking about it going exponentially worse, I actually think it goes like a wave up and down. It's like in terms of how you feel.
Yeah.
Because you go through high moments, you go through low moments. You get on rolls, like if you're with a certain pacer, conversation's great. You're forgetting about like how much pain your feet are in, and you guys are moving. Like we moved really well the last 40 miles of Moab 240. I mean, we probably passed like 10 people, and I felt a lot better at that time probably than 100 to 140.
Jeez.
even though that was, the last 40 miles of that race.
That's so interesting.
So it goes up and down.
What was your cumulative time? Or I guess maybe just say like
I
what
think it was like 91 hours.
across all 3 races. Do you know that number?
Oh, no.
Because what Tahoe was 87.
87, 91, in like 79. I can.
Bigfoot was your fastest.
Yeah. And
Dude,
that
he's
was
doing the
actually
math.
hardest. Doing the math.
He's doing the math.
257 hours.
257
And
hours.
I think I came in top 10. I was like 5th. in
Really?
the
Do you know how
Triple
many
Crown.
people finished all 3?
The Triple Crown?
Yeah.
Ah, shoot.
I would be curious to know how many people started the Triple Crown to how many people finished. I would guess it's less than half, maybe.
Okay,
right?
how many people do you guess started and how many people do you guess finished?
I would guess. Do you have the answer?
Will it not show me on my mobile device?
We'll look it up later if we can't find it. I know for the Grand Slam of hundreds, it's like 15 people will do it every year, and then about half of those will finish. So I would guess it's maybe like 50% finisher rate.
With the Grand Slam, there's 15 people that do it?
It's not very big.
Dang. Well, I guess that's 4 races.
Yeah, but interesting. So you said it was 257 hours for your cumulative time.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was a lot.
That's so much. How many days is that? Well, you got your calculator out. What's 257 divided by 24? Dead air. We can't have this dead air, Piercy.
10.
10 days?
Yeah.
Is that right? I
Isn't
guess because each race took you, 3 to 4 days. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? 10 days of running. That's incredible.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dude, would you do this all over again? If you do have the opportunity, but would you ever consider doing?
Okay, 18 people finished.
Okay, he found it. 18 people.
Now it's number 6.
Does it tell you how many started?
No, I can't pull it up.
6
here.
out of 18. That's pretty dang good, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was over 30, I think, for sure.
Dang.
Yeah.
That started, do you think?
Yeah.
Would you do the Triple Crown again?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I wouldn't do it right away, but there's just it's something like, have you ever done something for the first time and you get it done, but you realize you could do it so much better?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Texas,
Yeah.
and they're all mountain races. So, like, how smart is that?
Right.
Right?
That's what makes this even more incredible. I would imagine, I don't know the statistic on this, but I would guess that most of the people running these races probably live in or near the mountains.
Oh, 100%.
And you live in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah. There's
one of the
you've
flattest.
been here for a while. No mountains.
Yeah, very flat.
So that's why. Like,
Yeah.
and that's something maybe for the listeners too you can take away is one of the things I've learned is like, don't necessarily restrict the races you want to do to the environment that you're in, because like if you want to do Leadville's an iconic race, and just because you live in a flat area doesn't mean you can't do treadmill work, you can't strengthen your legs with strength training to be able to like knock out the altitude and stuff. Like, it's probably going to be a little bit harder than someone who lives in Colorado, but don't let that hold you back. But on the flip side is like, if you want to perform best as possible, like, what is the environment that you're in best suited for?
Yeah.
So for me in Texas, like it being super hot, like hot races would probably be something good for me to pursue. They're not my favorite, but if I want to, and something I may think of is like, if I want to do as best as possible, like what are some hot races that I can do and train for and utilize the heat?
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest thing you've learned through this? Like, I would imagine running for 10 days like this in these races, being out there for 80, 90 hours, you had to have learned something, right?
Yeah, some would think. Two big things I learned. One is the power of patience. I was talking to a guy at Tahoe actually, and an older guy, and he has actually since joined our Wednesday morning track group because he lives in
Oh,
Texas.
nice.
But we were talking because he lives in Texas, and
I think I remember that guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and his name was Garen, and he's like, you don't see many young people out here, and I go, yeah, why do you think that is? And he goes, I think because these things are so long, they require a lot of patience.
Yeah.
And so through this, I've learned the power of patience in that you can be doing the right thing. It's just enough time hasn't passed. Like typically we're smarter than we give ourselves credit for. And you may be taking the right actions towards your goal, but you haven't been given enough time to be able to accomplish your goal. Think
Right.
about it. Think about baking, right? If you want to bake a cake, right? You have all the ingredients, you mix it up, you do whatever, and you put it in the oven at 400 for 30 minutes. Say, I don't know, I don't bake. But it's not like you can crank it up to 800 and drop it down to 15 minutes. Like it's going to burn. But you have to cook it at 400 for 30 minutes. And that's kind of like how this is in a 200-mile race is. It's like maybe you can marginally go a little bit faster, but at the end of the day, regardless of whatever, like your time is still going to be really long, and you still have to have the patience to go 2, 3, 4 days and keep moving forward.
Yeah. Dude, I like that baking analogy.
Right?
Where did you just come up with that?
I grabbed it from somewhere.
I've never heard that before. That's such a perfect visualization.
But then too, the power of relationships, right? Because everyone talks about like you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like relationships are important. Like relationships are the most important thing in your life. But how many people actually live like that? And I got convicted about that too, because I've been so focused on these races that I haven't prioritized relationships as much. That's probably something I'll do more in 2024. But a difference like between Bigfoot and Moab, for instance. Bigfoot, I had a crew member. I was supposed to have 3 crew members. 2 ended up not being able to. My 1 crew member did an amazing job, and I couldn't thank Bradley enough. He crushed it. But at the same time, it was really special crossing the finish line. He was there. We hugged, had an amazing time. But then I went to Moab, and at Moab, I actually had 8 or 9 people. And during this race, I had, a pacer basically for every section that I could. And switching off pacers, having different conversations with different people, allowing them to experience it with me and be a part of that. And then I crossed the finish line. There's 5 to 6 guys right there all cheering on. And they were even really impacted by that experience because it lifted the lid on what they thought was possible by, certain people that they saw out there that they're like, man, I didn't realize someone like that could run a 200-mile race, or whether they see me really down and out but be able to keep going. It shows them that even when you're struggling, you can keep moving forward. And so too, one of the things that I realized about that Moab was, man, during that race we created so many memories and so many amazing experiences that all of those guys will remember forever, and me too. And so how powerful is it to focus on bringing people together to do those sorts of things?
That's so cool. That's one of the best parts about running, for sure,
Yeah.
is the ability to bring people together like that and inspire people and go out and do something hard like that and have that community around you. There's definitely something in our souls I think we need to have good people around us.
And I think with ultras too, it's really cool because you also bring in your crew in that crew element. And for a marathon, you may have people out there supporting you, but what are they really doing rather than cheering you on? But you're trying to go so fast that you're just, keep going. You're thankful for them, but they don't really do much to change your race. Versus a 200, it's you got people meeting you at each aid station. You got different pacers. You got people making you food, helping you change, like all this kind of stuff. And they play a bigger part in that. So I
Yeah.
think it's a very unique like thing you can do.
Yeah, it's definitely a team effort. You could do it on your own probably. Like people do it on their
Yeah.
own.
It's
But
not nearly as special.
yeah, I feel like it's missing that element.
Yeah, and two, it's like too, you think about that, like draw that analogy, like your crew for a race. I need someone to navigate, I need someone to pace me, I need someone to help me with food, refill my water bottles. There's all these different people serving different purposes on the crew. One person to document it, another person to post stuff on social media. Like, who's your crew in your life? Like, think about that. Who's someone that's going to pace you throughout life? Who's someone that's kind of like a running mate for you, that you're around the same season, and they are going in the same direction. You can encourage one another for when times get tough, like how I see you. Like we're
Right.
kind of like pacing each other. Who's maybe someone who's a little bit ahead of you, who can give you wisdom on, like, for me, when to sleep, when to like for instance, my coach during Tahoe, it's like I was struggling with GI issues. He was able to give me the wisdom to help me navigate this certain thing. We need those things in life. Like we need
Right.
those things beyond a race. Like who's, directing you, like a coach or a mentor in a career or just in life.
Yeah.
Like someone that's ahead of you. So there are a lot of correlations between ultra running and life, and that's part of the cool thing about him is you learn so much.
That's so cool. I love that. There's this new documentary on Netflix. It's called The Blue Zones. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's basically like this guy goes and lives with and like kind of studies the parts of the world where people tend to live the longest. And one of the core like common themes between all these different groups across the world is like their sense of community that they all have, and like they all have like a really tight knit group of people that they spend time with every day or a couple times a week. And like they got basically the consensus was like, in order to live longer and be happier and like feel more fulfilled, like you have to have good people around you. So I feel like, again, like you said, at ultra running, it's like the very tangible way
Yeah.
to see all these things that we can then apply to life that we don't always, it's not always so clear in everyday life.
Yeah, like the whole accomplishing the Triple Crown of the 200s and all these races is people may see me in like the fact that I did that and be like, wow, but they probably most of the time don't see all the people that go into it and are behind the scenes, all the people that were pacers, all the people that were on my crew, the coaches I've had,
Even during training.
the training, like us going on training runs, me going on training runs with other people. Like there's so many people that come together to make a dream realized. Like one thing people probably wouldn't see is like all the people I actually run with during these races, because a 200 miles completely different from 26. In that 26, like you're racing the whole time, so you're going your own pace versus a 200, you run your own race, but to pass the time, especially, miles 1 through 100, like you're just trying to get by through it. So if you find someone around you that's running relatively close to the same pace, like you'll keep running with them, just have conversation and camaraderie and community to push each other through it.
What did you, if anything, what did you change like from race 1 Tahoe to the third race in Moab? Like, did you change much in your strategy? Because it seems like so much of these races are all about strategy.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I mean, tactically, I focused very much on like just next aid station. So that's one big change I made.
What about with like nutrition?
Yeah, salt pills. I switched from like a powder to salt pills. Like I love using a powder for like 50s, 100s and stuff like that, but 200s, it just becomes so much to like figure out, okay, I need, a scoop here. Because think about how many scoops you do. And then versus when I can come into the aid station at this race and just be like, okay, I just want all water. It's so easy.
Yeah.
So I did that. Fueling was pretty the same. I started during Moab using this this muscle gel I was telling you about. The CBD muscle gel.
Is it Ashe or?
Ashe?
Ashe.
Yeah. Dude, that that like took the edge off
Really?
for the last 40 miles. Like, I swear it's not placebo. Like, this CBD stuff actually like helped, and I could feel it after. You know when like your legs are like tight and you need to run a little bit to like take the tightness out? So at aid stations, I'd lather it on and then I'd get up and I wouldn't feel as tight.
Really?
And then, yeah, because it's got like the CBD and then the menthol is like really fast acting. And so it takes that edge off. And then, two, like during the race, like my legs, the last 40 miles, my legs weren't really the limiter. It was my feet. Like, my feet just killed.
Yeah.
And so I need to figure out something with that. But I mean, that's part of it. And just, I think, part of getting more time on your feet, more hours, more races and stuff like that. But
Yeah, it's probably hard to get your body to adapt. Like if you're like most people and you sit a lot throughout the day and then you say, okay, we're going to go stand and be on our feet for 4 days straight, essentially. Like that's a big change from, I mean, even now we're sitting down. When you're working, you're sitting down. In your car, you're sitting down. Like we're sitting so much.
yeah, that's actually an interesting thing that I would want to I want to spend a day with, the guy Dean Karnassus.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because he like has orchestrated his house. From what I hear, I didn't see this myself. Someone told me he's orchestrated his house so that he's never sitting.
Oh, like standing desk.
Yes,
No chairs.
standing desk, no chairs. Like stands when he eats.
His guests probably hate him.
Yeah.
Didn't he have?
Good point.
Didn't he have a record at some point, or maybe he still holds it? I saw something about him the other day. He has some like crazy ultra record.
Yeah, it's like longest continuous streak. Maybe it's like 300 miles.
Yeah, like without stopping or something.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, there's a crazy thing that just happened. The backyard ultra.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, I feel like we had to talk about that for a sec.
Well,
it's so crazy.
It's like I did Moab and I was like, man, Moab was so long. And then I see that and I'm like, dude, they ran 450 miles and not much longer than I went either.
It's like 108 hours.
Yeah, so I was 91, so 17 more hours, but double almost.
And there's like no time to
more
sleep.
Miles. Yeah, no time to sleep. I mean, the train was probably flatter.
I think at the end of it, I saw some comment that they had done about 50, or it was either 50 or 60,000 feet. So still looked like a pretty good amount of gain.
Still a really good amount of gain. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see the difference between when you do longer segments versus shorter segments.
Right.
Like
having that constant refresher every 4 miles. Yeah.
Like, cause one of the first things I did was when I ran my first like real ultra, I did 52 miles. And it was a 1.08 mile loop that I do every 15 minutes for 48 segments. So like every 15 minutes for 12 hours. And one of the things I did was I did this, 1.08 miles, took me about 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And then I would sit down, put my feet up, and then go the next one. And so, I mean, I'm trying to remember because that was almost it was fall of 2019, which is crazy. That was 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years ago, I ran my first ultra. And so I was significantly less sore from what I remember.
Yeah, because your body has that time to like catch up.
Yeah.
Often.
Not to like say what they did was not crazy and outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sense.
It's probably a little bit easier in some aspect. Just that style.
Yeah.
For me, it'd for sure be the sleep thing. Like I don't know how they can like go that long without sleep. That's gotta cause like brain damage, doesn't it?
But this is one interesting thing about these 200s is you realize like, yes, sleep is super important, and with more sleep you're able to go more, but like you can get by with like a power nap. Like it can rejuvenate you. It's crazy.
I saw you taking more dirt naps during Moab.
Yeah.
I don't think you did that in Tahoe at all.
I don't think so. During I've heard this story. There's like this story of Courtney DeWalter doing a 1 minute nap or something. And she's like, yeah, it was just the best night's sleep of my life. I'm like, what? But supposedly it just rejuvenated her. And, you know, a
Interesting.
lot of people are big fans during these ultras of like 10 to 15 minute like naps.
Yeah. How often? Maybe that's something I'm curious about is how did your sleep strategy change between each of the 3 races? Because that again seems like one of the hardest things to figure out for these.
Yeah. There was a pivotal moment when I came into this aid station. I think it was called Dry Valley in Moab. And it's the last section before it was exposed pretty bad, the last like 3 to 5 miles. And it started to get hot, so it was tough. I had slept for 2 hours the second night, but that was all I had slept in 2 days. And like my body hurt, but like I could run more than I was, but I just like couldn't get myself to. Like I was trying to figure out a cadence to get myself to run, but I was just exhausted. And I came into this aid station and my crew like had noticed I was, you know, dragging a little bit or something or didn't look super good and was like stumbling. I don't know if I was stumbling on my words or like I just wasn't making as much. I wasn't as sharp as I typically am like right now, right? And they wanted me to sleep. And I didn't want to sleep because there was this flat section and then I was going to sleep at the night because it was the middle of the day. And one of my coach's friends was there. And I talked to my coach, or I texted him. He said talk to his friend because he could like tell me based on how he saw me. And one of the questions he asked me, we were talking about the last section. He asked my pacer how I was doing, and I told him like, you know, I started dragging a little bit towards the end, and then he's like, I said, you know, I think I could probably run this next section like pretty decent, but do a run walk split. And he's like, why couldn't you run more? And I go, he goes like, are you injured? Like your feet, like whatever. I'm like, yeah, my feet are uncomfortable, but like it's honestly like getting myself to run more. And he's like, oh, that's probably a sleep thing. Like you need to sleep a little bit. And so between me, like not making as much sense, like talking wise,
Yeah.
like I would not say things correctly. I would stumble around a little bit. I was a little bit disoriented. And then like he said like because I couldn't get myself to run more, I needed to sleep. So that's an indicator.
Yeah.
So a thing kind of clicked in my brain where I was like, man, okay, if I'm physically capable of running, but I can't really get myself to run late in a race, like in these 200s, it's probably because I need to sleep more.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh, dang, okay. And so then I slept the next aid station, crushed a like 40-mile stretch that was like some of the most gain on the course is like 8,000 total feet across the 440. And then I slept at the last like the 200-mile aid station and took like an hour nap or something, hour and a half, and then went. And then that last part of, you know, why I think I did so well those last 40 was because of the more sleep. So it's interesting. And everyone's a little different,
Yeah.
but.
So do you think it's there's not like one way, even for you, there's not just one way to go about the sleep. It's just like gauging how you feel throughout the race and
yeah, it's how you feel because like you'll try something and it works. You'll try the same thing again the next race and it doesn't. It's just so like unexplored. Like they've got marathons like dialed in. Like if you do this training, you'll get to this point.
Yeah.
They've got hundreds. Like they're starting to get it more dialed in, but not 200s. No, it's like the Wild West.
Yeah. Yeah, they're so new.
Yeah.
It's such a while you're talking, I was just thinking, I'm like, how 200 miles is so far because my furthest I've gone is 50 miles.
Yeah.
And like I was thinking back to like the last 5-10 miles of my 50-mile race, and it felt like so long. And I'm like, I cannot imagine even doing 100, let alone 200, like 4 times what I've done. It's just like I can't wrap my mind around it.
Okay, think about this. That I agree. Like, you know, that was hard for me to fathom at first. But think about this. So when you go and do a half marathon, typically, once you get through the first couple miles, like you'll start to feel it more so towards, mile 10, 11, 12. Like you'll start to feel like, okay, like I'm ready to be done, whatever. When you do a marathon, maybe 20, 21, you don't feel that same way at 10, 11, and 12 than you did when you were doing the half marathon. And so that's just an attributor to the power of perspective. And like when I say I'm going to do, a 200-mile race, like my approach and my mindset and just my perspective then dictates not me, at 45, 46, 47, like, okay, I'm ready to be done.
Yeah.
Like you have it in your mind, like, and so you still go through those ups and downs, but it's not nearly like how you think that, like, it's not the same feeling.
That makes perfect sense. I just gotta go run 100 miles. That's my problem.
But too, I mean, even for the people that are listening to this and like, oh yeah, this guy's kind of interesting. Like this stuff is maybe cool, but like I'm never gonna run 200 miles. Okay, you don't have to run 200 miles. But what I hope this podcast does for you is I hope that it like expands your mindset to believe what's possible. And maybe you're not interested in running 200 miles, but you think, okay, if Pierce can run 200 miles and people can do that, maybe I can run 20. Maybe I can run a half marathon. I can at least do a 5K. Like, that's kind of the mindset that I encourage people to have, because it's like, no, not everyone has to run 200 miles. Like, not everyone wants to do it. And if you don't want to, like, you don't have to.
I love that.
Right? But you can still get something out of it.
Yeah.
And that's how I've treated certain people, like, in my life of, oh, wow, they did this. Like, okay, maybe I could do something hard.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, maybe let's flip that and say, I'm just going to ask this question from my own perspective. If I wanted to go run 100 miles or a 200-mile race, what advice would you have to, like, maybe tactically, like training wise, like what kind of things would I need to implement to go, let's just say, from a marathon conditioning up to a 100-mile race, and then maybe progress to a 200 someday?
Well, I think the biggest thing to know is that, like, if there are people that have done it, you can do it too. Like, get your confidence from that, and get even more confidence from, okay, I just need to find someone that's done it and have them write a training plan or give me tips on how I can do that. Like, part of what gave me so much confidence going into the 200s, even though I hadn't done it, is I hired a guy who won all 3 races of them. So I'm like, okay, wow, well, if I get this guy as my coach, like, of course I can do it. Like, he knows what I need to do in order to get there. And so it's just finding someone who's already been there to create a plan for you, and then being disciplined, putting in the work and following the plan. Like, I think it's that simple. And 2, having a guide in front of you is like, it just opens your eyes to all the different things. Because before you run a 100-mile race, you may not think of, oh, well, should I change my shoes or socks at mile 50 to help preserve my feet? You may not think to check, like, okay, how far apart are the aid stations, or what do I have to plan to put in my drop bags, or do I have the right the right headlamp? Like, because even me, like, I ran into some things at, Moab, going several nights in the dark, where I realized my headlamp sucked. And so I'm definitely getting a different one for the next race I did, because it just makes a big difference. So, my biggest advice is just, like, find someone that's done it, have them help you get there, and invest in that. Like, why wouldn't you want to improve your chances and your odds of getting to a place? Like, I know you have coaches, I have coaches, and it's just a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, even people ask me that all the time, like, you're a coach for other people, why do you need a coach? And it's like, because I want to learn from somebody who has more experience than me even, or you can always keep progressing. Even my coach has a coach. It's like, everybody has, like,
well, too, if your coach doesn't have a coach, why don't they?
Right.
I'd almost be more alarmed, because if you believe in coaching enough to be a coach, who's pouring into you?
Yeah. Like even for example, like your coach Mike McKnight, doesn't
Yeah.
he have a coach? Isn't it Jeff Browning?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like because there's always something to learn and always something to gain. I think from having that second person there, and I think for me too, it makes it more of like a team effort in some way. It's like you're not just out there doing it by yourself. Like you have somebody to ask questions, even if you know how to do it. It's like you can still learn something from that.
Yeah.
I know the post race blues
Oh.
have hit you and me too lately, but I want to hear your thoughts on this. I saw a lot of posts about it after like Chicago Marathon, just because
Oh,
I knew so
really?
many people running it.
I've never seen many posts about
I
it.
saw quite a few posts about the post race blues, and I'm
Yeah.
curious your experience with that.
Yeah, I like the word blues rather than depression.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the word I typically
Yeah.
use. Well, one of the things, and I'll just tell you a little story. I ran the rim to rim to rim in what was that? 2020, in the fall of 2020. And I go and I do this tough physical challenge with some good friends. And I mean, it's beautiful. We have an amazing time. Man, it was so hard. I mean, it's like 10,000 feet of gain over
It's a crazy trail.
45 miles or something. It's like going up and down stairs at certain parts. But amazing time. I get back to work. I'm working in Arizona at the time. And the day or two after, I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, what is going on? I'm not as driven as I typically am. I honestly feel like I'm depressed. Like, I just can't get work done. I'm not focused. Like, what is going on? And something I've come to realize is after such a big effort, there's a couple of things going on. I think, especially like during a longer race and depending on how much you exert yourself, like there's probably some sort of chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
Like for me, there's clearly something up, like with the amount of sleep I missed, like hormones, whatever, are
Yeah.
just out of whack. So first, you're dealing with a chemical balance. Two, you're dealing with, you've been training for a goal for the last 6 months or year. You put all this time and effort and energy and you finish it, which is great. But now you don't have a goal that you're working towards. So like you have a reason to get up in the morning, but like it's not, you don't have like this grand vision that you're chasing that's very top of mind and very clear. Number 3 is like you experience all the congratulations or like excitement around finishing the race, the big crossing the finish race line, all the messages, congrats, you did this time, congrats, you finished what you set out to do, I'm so inspired. Like, who doesn't want that? And then to come down from that is pretty rough. And so you're dealing with a bunch of different factors. And so what I've learned best is like, I'm not perfect at it, but it's like giving myself extra grace during the time of like, okay, I know, and I'm learning more from these 200s because I'm new to them. Like for a 200, I know I need to give myself for at least 2, sometimes 3 weeks after to like, not saying I'm not going to do anything, but I'm going to be a little bit like, I'm not going to worry about getting up at an exact time. I'm going to be a little less like, I'm going to be more flexible with my schedule. I'm not going to worry about, getting this in perfectly or getting that in perfectly. Like I'm going to prioritize sleep. I'm going to, not really make any big decisions in that period of time because I know that I'm not like my typical self. I'm going to constantly remind myself that this is just a matter of time before I start feeling better. Like this is not always how I'm going to feel. And so those are a couple ways I get through it. But yeah, dude, it's real.
Yeah, that was a good explanation of the post race blues. I wish I would have asked that doctor I just had on the podcast because all we talked about was hormones and like all these different effects of running. I should have asked him about like
next doctor you
yeah
have on.
yeah I'll get another one on but because it's such a high that you're on, and then you come down from that and you go back to reality.
And
of
regardless of how amazing your life is, it can't compare to like finishing an accomplishment that you've been working for so
Right.
long on.
I get kind of that same thing even from like going on vacation. I've seen.
Oh no,
Yeah.
well, think about it. It's your race is like a vacation. It's worse because
Yeah.
it's like a vacation, but then also it's paired with doing something you had trained for.
Yeah.
And so it's that stacked. It's like goal achievement plus
Yeah.
vacation.
Did you get your what is that place called? Baked Bear ice cream?
Heck yeah, dude.
Dude, is that nearby here?
Yeah.
We might have
We
to go there.
tonight.
Let's take Brady
Don't
there.
tell Mike.
You're in between. You're on the off season.
Yeah.
You're safe.
I'm on the off season until my race in a month.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, this is a perfect segue.
But actually let me dive into that.
Okay.
Because like a lot of people experience me as being super disciplined, super focused, like a cyborg. Like really, like my family makes fun of me because they don't think I ever have fun. Like that's the reality of it.
What do you mean? You run 200-mile races?
I know.
Isn't that fun?
Why isn't that fun? Like I totally think that's fun. But yeah, so I kind of have this deal with myself in that like I don't really enjoy desserts that much. Like I enjoy I enjoy achievement more than like desserts, honestly. Like, I actually get energy from denying myself like certain things because I stay more disciplined. I'm like, oh, dude, peers are so awesome.
Can you put that on a shirt? Achievements with like the greater than symbol. Dessert.
I agree, but yeah, no. So like, I actually, it's kind of weird. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I get energy because I know I'm progressing towards like the goal I have. But then I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. I believe you can be very disciplined, but it's hard to be very disciplined at all times or else I feel like you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
At least for me. And so after a race, I give myself the opportunity to like, okay, if I feel like I want to go to Baked Bear and get a bear bowl, which is like a cookie with 2 scoops of ice cream in it, like I will, like, because I've worked so hard for, being disciplined in my training for 6 months without any of that. And so I'm going to go do that.
Yeah. That's what it makes me think of like David Goggins. I'm like, what would David Goggins say to that? He'd call you like a weak little bitch. But that's why he's not as relatable as somebody like you. Because like you're a real person.
Yeah, and I don't know, like I kind of see where Goggins is coming from because I do believe that like, when I have the ice cream and things like that, at that time in the week I do or the days I do, it's like I'm not as like boom, let's get it done, like, let's grind, let's get our runs in, like like not maybe as much as like if I'm like frantic and like race ready, doing every single workout to a T, like eating to a T.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's because you almost feel like it's weird because like you want ice cream so bad, you want it pizza, you want to not do your run every morning at 5 a.m. Like you want to do you want to skip out on that run, you want to indulge in the ice cream, whatever it is. But like as soon as you follow through with that and like you get the ice cream or you skip the run, you feel defeated almost. It's like you lose that confidence that you work. It's like the opposite of like you go and do it, you build confidence, you skip out on it, you like feel like meh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah,
and it's interesting because like I don't know, who knows? Is it like David Goggins? I love I love everything he does, and I think he's super inspiring. He's part of what motivated me to, or just showed me a picture of possibility to do 100-mile races and things like that. You wonder if like, okay, could many people survive like that, or would it just like take a toll on? Is he kind of like he's developed himself into a rare breed and he wants to be like that?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. But there are 2 things. One, like I definitely feel like he has to uphold this kind of image he has because of all the lives that he's changed.
Yeah.
Like, because there was one, I think he was talking to Joe Rogan, and he was like, Joe Rogan asked him, he's like, Goggins, do you feel like sometimes, because of the kids that will, message you that they were about to commit suicide and then they didn't because of you, or, this, that, and the other, do you feel like you have to do what you do? And he's like, heck yeah, like I would have retired years ago
Yeah.
if I wasn't, like, he feels kind of like this positive responsibility.
Yeah.
But then I talked to other people like Sally McRae. Sally McRae won Moab, amazing,
And the Triple Crown
and the Triple Crown
for females. Yeah.
for females, and the Grand Slam of 200s.
Yeah.
And so yeah, incredible person. She attributes her off season to what's been able to allow her to race for 15 or so years competitively. Like, she's won Badwater, she won Moab, she's done phenomenally, and she takes like 2 to 4 months. I like was drilling her with questions on this because I was like super interested. She takes like 2 to 4 months off where she loves strength training, so she'll strength train like 5-6 days a week. But because she just loves it. But then as far as running goes, her running's very unstructured. She'll just kind of run whenever she wants to. She won't do like a ton of long runs. She lives in California, so she'll do like some stand-up paddle boarding, like some other stuff, but just kind of switching it up so it's like you don't burn out on the sport. And you get a little mental break, because I think as much as physical break, you also get the mental break of like, okay, for this section of period of time, I can be a little relaxed because I know when I get to this section of time, I'm going to be like balls to the walls, like disciplined.
Right. Yeah, I found that with myself too, like going in cycles like that seems to be very beneficial because I don't know, it just doesn't seem sustainable to go hard all the time, like just keep going race after race after race, doing PRs and longer distances. Like, you can keep progressing, but I think having some time in between seems to kind of be the key. At least to like preventing injuries, ensuring your longevity.
Physically you need it for sure.
Yeah.
Like, actually, I have this mentor, and we were having this conversation recently, and he's like, he had pulled up that I had finished, and him and his wife did a lot of bodybuilding, and she, once she saw that I had just finished, he told her, and she goes, okay, how are you going to help pierce through the post-goal achievement depression? And like, you have to go through those ups and downs, and that speaks to like post-race blues. But like that kind of speaks to like, oh, no, what I was going to say, sorry, I got a little sidetracked with that. We then started to talk about bodybuilding, and he says that a lot of people get injured in bodybuilding because they do a show and then they get that depression and then they try and jump back into it too quickly, and then that's when most of the injuries happen, because you just can't. You need to give your body time to rest, and that's kind of like with races, in that, like, maybe there's some anomalies, but like, for the most part, if you do a huge effort, like, your body's still recovering. Like, my body's still 100% recovering from Moab.
Right.
So I can't jump right back into it. I got to ease myself back into it so I don't get injured.
Yeah, and I think it seems like that recovery period can be sped up over time.
Yeah.
Like, the more you do these things, obviously your body becomes more adapted and acclimated.
I agree.
Dude, I remember like my first marathon, I didn't run for like a month afterwards. Or maybe it wasn't that long, but it was a long time without running.
Yeah.
And I was like beat up for a while. And now it's like I can run 2 or 3 days after a marathon.
Yeah.
It's like just a couple of years later.
Isn't that fascinating? And then it's fascinating that there are studies that there was something that said, like, if you run a marathon, shouldn't run for 6 months or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what?
Yeah, maybe if you've never done anything physical before ever.
Okay, so
or something, I don't know.
For Moab 240, I clocked 250 miles. So that's 10 minutes shy of 10 marathons. So should I not run for 5 years?
Yeah.
That's the
I
correlation.
think that's how it works.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, like,
Well, what's next? Sorry, guys. I can't run for 5 years.
yeah. Your like recovery in between races. So you had, how long was it? I know Tahoe to Bigfoot was like 3 weeks or something.
17 days.
17 days, less than 3 weeks. And then you had what, like 2 months between
Yeah.
Bigfoot and Moab.
Yeah.
How did your recovery go in between the races? Like, did you do anything specific that seemed to help?
Well, part of what I did was with Mike, part of the reason I hired him is because he follows this low carb approach. And so he really focuses on eating a high protein, higher fat diet and still using carbs, but using them strategically. And so he'll use them strategically around race times. And like during a race, like use awesome sauce or whatever to help fuel. But he'll strategically be low carb around other times so it can speed up recovery. And so that's super powerful in that, and that's why I did that. So I actually really think that helped allow me to do these 200s. But in addition to that, foam rolling, I've got a cold plunge, doing as much like red light as I could, because red light therapy helps like with blisters and skin in particular.
Did you notice a difference from that?
Yeah, I think so.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can never tell with some things like that. I'm like, does it really do anything?
Well, the guy I know who owns the center, he's like gotten he has tattoos, and he was saying like this tattoo usually takes however much time to like heal after, like 2 weeks or however long, but it took a matter of a couple days because he does red light every day.
I mean, it's getting popular for sure. It's like I believe it does something for how popular it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I want to talk to you about your content too, because I know you're going hard into content lately.
Oh, what do you want to talk? I'm learning from you, man.
Well, I know you've like just kind of gone full send into creating content.
Oh yeah.
What, the last year or so, kind of?
Yeah, I'd say.
And you had our good friend Brady out to film and document for Moab.
Yeah.
So you guys are working on like a documentary, right?
Yeah, that could be a good way to point people to wrap this up. Yeah, so we're working on a documentary. It's actually going to be called like What Else Is Possible, because that powerful belief breaker that I had when I ran my first half marathon, and I want to reach more people with that and get more people to adopt that, because we're all so much more capable than what we think. And two, I think that's a story of, not necessarily following the beaten path of what everyone else thinks you should do, because, every person who did something that we admire them for was doubted at certain points.
Yeah.
And wasn't sure that they could do it at certain points, or other people weren't sure of them. And so, yeah, we're creating a documentary. It's going to be really cool. I'm super excited for this. First one I've ever done.
Nice.
And it will probably be out in December. So not sure when this is going to come out, but
This will be out-
sometime in December.
This will be out like a week from now.
Okay.
So like first week in November, I think.
Okay.
So maybe like 4 weeks from.
So be sure to follow and catch that up.
Dude, I'm so excited to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I get a little spot in there too, don't I?
Oh yeah, you're gonna get.
I don't know what the heck I'm in there for, but I'm excited.
We gotta have you in there, man.
And then I guess we can wrap it up with this. What is next for Piercy? I know we just finished like 2 weeks ago the Triple Crown, but I know that you've got to have something coming up.
Yeah. So, for me, I'm doing the Brazos Bend 100. That's December 2nd, actually on my birthday.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
I'm doing it on.
No better way to celebrate a birthday.
I know. I'm gonna run in a birthday hat too. No. But yeah, a lot of people too I'm friends with are doing it, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. A lot of people I coach are gonna be doing it, so that's gonna be awesome.
Are they all doing the 100?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Damn.
And they're just gonna go as far as they can. Like
That's
some
cool.
people have not put in the training that they should, but like they just want to go as far as they can and see. So yeah, we're doing that all together. And then too, like that's not really like my next big challenge.
100 miles is gonna be a walk in the park for you after all this.
Hey, we'll see, man. I might set a speed record. No, I'm kidding.
It is a fast course.
We'll see how fast my legs can recover. But yeah, I mean, really, I'm focused on like getting that done, but also I think for the next year or so, maybe do some fun challenges. Probably nothing as big. Gearing up for the next one. So,
Have you
yeah.
thought of anything in the back of your mind that's like, I might want to do that someday?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll leave it as a secret.
I feel like there's something in there. What about like one of these backyards?
That could be fun.
Do those entice you at all?
Guys in the back trying to get us out of here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They're kicking us out of this studio.
I know. Should we leave this in the episode?
Yeah, let's leave it in. Whatever.
But yeah, maybe a backyard. We'll see.
I thought you were like being secretive about the backyard. I didn't realize there's people.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
we're in a spot where they just don't want us to stay here all night. We could talk all night.
Yeah.
Guess we'll have to come back for round 4.
Round 4, dude. I think you're the only repeat guest, and this is round number 3.
Dang. Well, I hope
Dude.
the audience isn't sick of me yet.
No, dude. Who could be sick of Piercy?
Um,
Okay, let's wrap this up. What is the best place to find you and connect with Piercy?
The best place to connect with Piercy is on Instagram at Showe. And you may see me doing videos with Jeremy because we always like to record content together.
Of course.
But yeah, I'm posting a lot of tips, especially leading up to this 100. So
Yeah.
check that out for some informational tips.
I love it, dude. Well, thanks for coming on. You're a freaking savage. The youngest male to ever complete the Triple Crown of 200s.
Youngest person to ever do the Triple Crown and Ultraman, maybe.
And Ultraman.
Yeah,
That's true.
That is a fact.
Well, dude, you're doing some amazing things, making a big impact on people, inspiring me for sure, and I'm sure tons of other people out there. So thanks for coming on.
Well,
and,
thank you.
Sharing your story, dude.
Thanks so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it and really appreciate what you're doing. And also, too, just a last bit for the audience is like, go out in there and do something hard.
Yeah.
Like, do something that you've never done before and watch, like, the belief that will grow in you and also the confidence that will build in you.
I love it. Listen to this man. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, you know what you're talking about, too.
Sometimes. All right. See you guys later.
See ya.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you in the next one.